We had no idea it would turn out the way it did or that you guys would still love it. It is well known. You don't always know when classics are being made, for example. People all over America used to fall in love with this face. TV screens were lit up by a smile. Everyone loved Tisha Campbell, who played the lead role in House Party and Martin. She was a 90s star. But there was a dark truth she kept hidden for almost 30 years, just below the surface of her laughs and high-energy dance moves. A secret that no one in Hollywood said. A tragedy she went through by herself to keep someone else's image safe. Now, after all these years, Tisha is finally speaking out, and what she says will shock you. Are you sure you know Tisha Campbell? You should watch this video all the way to the end to find out the truth. It will change the way you see her forever. When everyone in the US couldn't look away from Tisha Campbell. Picture yourself living in the 1990s. When VHS tapes were valuable collectibles, hip-hop beats filled every home, and the first black-led shows on popular TV made people laugh out loud. During that culture wave, millions of people across the country knew the name Tisha Campbell right away. Tisha, a young woman with stylish hair, smart eyes, and a bright smile, slowly rose from supporting parts to become a black cultural icon that no one would forget. But most people didn't know that Tisha was hiding wounds that she had to carry by herself while the attention was on her. When House Party came out in cinemas in 1990, it was a big surprise hit. The film, which had a small budget of $2.5 million, was Reginald Hudlin's first time directing. He had worked hard to get his college project made into a business movie that was shown all over the country. Even though big studios didn't back House Party, it shocked everyone by making over $26 million. In ticket sales in the US, it became a cultural phenomenon that spread from college dorms to MTV. In the middle of all that chaos, Tisha Campbell stole the show as Sydney, the neighbor girl who was smart, charming, and sure of herself. Her character wasn't just the main character's love interest, she was the emotional center of the movie and what kept things from getting out of hand. Her dance scene with A.J. Johnson became legendary. It was shown over and over on VHS and then on YouTube, and it became a timeless sign of the hip-hop party era in the United States. But that was only the start. More opportunities came Tisha's way after House Party. Since 1992, she has been a regular on the famous Fox show Martin. Martin became well known. Martin Lawrence created and co-produced the show, and he also played the lead role. The show was about a loudmouth radio DJ in Detroit and his crazy days. But it wasn't just the slapstick entertainment that kept people coming back. It was about Martin and Gina, who was played by Tisha Campbell. They were the model for black love on TV in the 1990s. They were funny, sweet, fiery, and honest. Martin had over 11 million viewers per episode in its first season alone. At that time, that was a huge number for any comedy, but especially for one aimed at black people. And Tisha was in the middle of it all. Not just as a co-star, but also as the emotional anchor and heartwarming contrast to Martin Cole, Tommy, and Pam's pranks. Gina's fashion alone started a trend across the country. All over the world, young women rushed to buy bodycon dresses, big curls, and hoop earrings that were too big for their ears. But Tisha was a role model because she was strong and charming. She was a modern black woman who wasn't to be taken lightly, who knew when to stand her ground, and who always clapped back. Tisha was in all 130 episodes of Martin from 1992 to 1997, which is pretty much the whole 5-season run. People loved her co-stars and praised her, and reviewers loved how she played her parts. TV Guide called her one of television's unmistakable icons, and Entertainment Weekly called her the most important black comedy lead lady. It looked like Tisha Campbell had reached the top with her 2 huge hits, one in movies and one on TV. She had fame, love from the people, and respect in her field. She was a sign and the queen of the screen. Everything looked great from the outside. A big smile, bright lights, and red rugs were all that was there. Things started to break, though. At the height of her fame, no one knew that Tisha was quietly going through things she couldn't bring herself to talk about. How hard it is to work with a strong male boss. The sneaky abuse going on behind the scenes that made her feel bad about herself. The never-ending tales, the suffocating silence that Hollywood structures made people live in. What people saw was a happy, lively Gina. Behind the camera, though, Tisha Campbell was in pain and facing a battle that no one else could see. Fame can blind not only people on the outside, but also people who are deeply broken inside. The sunlight didn't just shine on Tisha, it burned her. There were rumors going around. Clues began to show up. And finally, Tisha did the unthinkable. She told the truth, which rocked Hollywood. Not to shock anyone, but because the time had come. What did really happen? Tisha Campbell was a beloved leading lady of her time. Why did she disappear from the screen in silence and then come back with news that would change everything we thought we knew? A violent scene and shocking news from Tisha herself. The shocking number $4,000 was the start of it all. That's how much A.J. Johnson, who played Shireen, Tisha's character, Sydney's best friend, got paid for her whole part in House Party in 1990. Not more and not less. No royalties, no profit shares, and not even an extra dollar, even after the movie made a lot of money and became a culture icon. Many people were shocked when A.J. said that on a recent show. Then, though, everyone looked at Tisha and asked her a bigger question. How about you? Tisha didn't say what number it was. She didn't need to. The way she talked about how she felt like she was being used at that time said it all. A sour smile came across her face when she was asked if she was paid fairly. I came home with about $4,000 after taxes, management agents and all that, she said. A light answer that hurts a lot. There was more to it than just the amount. The situation made it worse. It wasn't that Tisha was a supporting figure. She played the main character and was the emotional center of the whole movie. The other half to kid and play buttons. Even though VHS tapes were flooding black areas from Brooklyn to Compton, she walked away with a check like she was an extra in the middle of a box office storm. A soul that lit up the screen but wasn't part of the deal. There are no back-end deals, no cut from selling tapes. There wasn't even a thank you note from the company. Nothing. It wasn't just House Party either. On the set of Martin, Tisha felt pushed to the side, even though she was a weekly TV star that millions of people watched. She said in an interview that it was like a decoration in a world where everyone was a man, a word that is both vivid and unpleasant. People didn't see me as a boss. She said, I was just put in there to make everything look better. And it's true that place wasn't made for women, especially black women. In the 1990s, Hollywood was still very much a boys' club. You were supposed to be quiet if you didn't yell loud enough, slam the table, or take charge of the money. Someone once told Tisha that the set was like a world where you had to line up or get left behind if you didn't stand out. She said it wasn't because she wasn't talented. That was because some people had power and didn't see women as partners, but as props. This went even further on House Party. Even though the movie was a hip-hop classic with a lot of energy, GS behind the scenes were not at all happy. Tisha talked about fights that happened between group members. It was tense, and women were always mentioned last, no matter what they had to say. A.J. Johnson, a close friend and co-star of Tisha's, once asked, what could be worse for a business that says it values talent? Tisha didn't just talk about herself. Many black actors of her time had to work for very little money and have their names taken off of posters and magazine covers, and not a single right to speak out. For many years, women like her had been told to be thankful just to be there, even if it meant giving up basic rights and sense of self-worth. Even after the movie did well and their names became known in the business, they were still supporting players in their own stories. It hurt Tisha, like a cut that doesn't leave a scar on the outside but eats away from the inside. If someone said nice things about me on the street, she said I would be happy and cry at the same time. They cared about Gina, but they didn't understand what I did to protect her. Following the rise of movements such as Swarm Me Too and Say Time's Up, Hollywood slowly woke up. This is when Tisha finally felt she could tell the truth. She began to talk. First in pieces, then the whole story. There was no longer any fear of being banned or being shut up, and she didn't blame herself. She's now speaking up, not just for herself, but for those who had to keep quiet for too long. Once upon a time, Tisha Campbell was the star of House Party. But it was when she said what no one else would say that she really became a figure, a sign of bravery, justice, and the right to be treated with respect in the entertainment business, not just pop culture. Of course, this is only the beginning. What comes next is scarier and darker, and it will change everything you think about Martin Lawrence, the sitcom Martin, and the whole Fox company during that time. Get ready, because Tisha Campbell is about to tell you the biggest secret she has ever kept. The lawsuit against Martin Lawrence and the statement that made Hollywood quiet. People don't tell certain secrets because they are too small to get caught, but because they are too big to be told out loud. For Tisha Campbell, staying quiet cost her not only being seen, but also some of her pride. The darkness in her mind took over when the lights went out and the crowd stopped laughing. That's when the truth started to shout. In 1997, Tisha Campbell suddenly stopped appearing in many episodes of the fifth season of the comedy Martin. At the time, she was very popular, and the show was a national TV hit. Not a single scene between her and Martin Lawrence, who co-stars in the show and is also the star and co-producer of it. There was no official reason given and no public scandal. People who paid close attention noticed that in the one-hour climax, Martin and Gina's whole conversation was shot in split screen, making it look like they were not even on the same set. That was not true, though. A few weeks later, there was a big story in the news. Tisha Campbell had officially sued Martin Lawrence for years of inappropriate behavior, physical abuse threats, and psychological pressure. It was no longer just a guess. People all over the world were told to prepare for war, and it woke up an entire business that had grown used to keeping quiet. Tisha wrote in her case about the horrible thing that happened to her. While working with Martin, she was groped without permission and made to kiss him on the tongue. During scenes, she was verbally abused on set, and there were scary, violent outbursts that scared the whole crew. Martin would sometimes scream, threaten, smash things, and physically show who was boss, turning a funny comedy set into a suffocating pressure cooker. When Tisha said, "I remember he told me to lie down and take off my clothes," it was one of the most shocking things she had ever heard. It wasn't about a story anymore. This was the worst kind of power abuse because there was no longer any difference between playing and real life. The woman on screen was no longer an actress. She was a real-life victim. Tiz said that she had asked the writers many times to get rid of personal scenes, but they wouldn't listen. Gina's character kept being put in positions in the scripts that made her feel violated, assaulted, and even embarrassed. She often couldn't finish scenes, cried right after the director called cut, and was hospitalized because she was so emotionally and physically worn out. She didn't tell anyone, didn't say anything in public, because she knew that if she spoke out at the wrong time, it would blow up her career. So, when she could take it no longer, she did what she thought was best. She filed a case. Martin fought back right away. He said in a public statement that he was being put in the middle of a contract conflict between Tisha and HBO Independent Productions, the company that makes the show. He denied everything that was said he had always looked out for Tisha, and said the case had no legal basis. What was the truth? The whole story might never come out. After only 4 months, the case was settled out of court, and Tisha signed a strict non-disclosure agreement, NDA, that kept her quiet for almost 30 years. She wasn't allowed to say names, give information, or talk about what really happened. Martin could not be on set at the same time as her, but she could come back for the last 2 shows. Each scene was edited very carefully to keep the personalities physically and mentally separate. For almost 30 years, Tisha Campbell carried that huge secret around with her like a huge load. A case of abuse was buried, an NDA that keeps the victim quiet, a set of rules made to keep the powerful safe. The news forgot about it for a long time. People didn't say anything. Tisha dropped out of big projects. Take away the stage, not any more shows, not any more red carpets. She was only afraid of pain and things she couldn't talk about. The past wasn't brought up by Martin until 2020, when he talked to GQ. He said, "We don't need to talk about something," when asked about the case. It didn't happen. Tisha, who is now over 50, didn't say anything for a long time. She then said, "I can't talk about the past. I'm not allowed to, but he knows what I went through." In 2022, they showed up together out of the blue on the Martin reunion special. Martin said, "I love Tisha more than anything else." Tisha said they were okay with each other again. You could see the scars still there, even though they were covered up by makeup, if you paid close attention and looked deeper into her eyes. She didn't need to say anything else, since everyone now knows. Tina is no longer Tisha. She made it through. That brave woman who spoke out so that other women wouldn't have to live in the dark claimed her right to tell her story. She said that on a show not long ago. "I was young at the time. I was weak. I had to keep my job, but I promised that I would speak up again if I had the chance. Now is that second chance. No longer can anyone shut her up. There is no NDA that can silence her. No more